Dear learners, welcome to SWAYAM NPTEL course on library automation and networking. This is week 6, module number 6, library networking. Lecture number is 28, library networks. Dear learners, as we have seen that if you take a particular case of a library has its own collections, manpower and users. But normally when you look into the perspective of users, many of the libraries users say that we have these resources and we don't have these resources, we are looking for this particular document and online access to this particular resource is not available. So always these kind of issues will be faced by librarians as well as library staff. So what really lacks here is, as we know that we are trying our level best to communicate as well as we are trying our level best to get all the resources, and we are even recommending more resources to the management to purchase, everything we are doing. But ultimately, as we know that no library in the world is self-sufficient. That means we will not be able to procure whatever is available in the world for a particular library. So in that manner, normally in the earlier cases, as we talk about traditional library systems, they used to have resource sharing like in the form of interlibrary loan. So for example, if one library is having a particular book and which is not available in the other library, the library in which that particular book is not available, the users of that particular library can come to the availability. The users of that particular library can visit this library and get the book issued for them. So that is part of interlibrary loan. Even in the similar way, libraries started having coordinations and cooperations and networking, etc., so that resource sharing become very smooth. And once this become little advanced, that library and networking systems have been advanced, that means the library started using such kind of a networking technology, the resource sharing become even faster as well as easy. So library networks is the kind of combination, or we can say that a coordination of libraries together making some kind of helps or support for providing maximum services to the users. So in this particular session, we will be learning more about library networks. So we will be learning about definition of library networks, need for library network, aims and objective of library network, functions of library network, and structure of network. So we will be learning each and every aspects of network which are highly developed in the case of libraries to provide sharing of resources. It is not only the resource sharing, apart from that all other communications, all other cooperations and coordinations which are happening in the library through library networking. So what do you mean by library network? Library network refers, it is a connection, it is a network. That means it is a kind of interconnection or interconnected systems or even the organizations that collaborate in order to provide access to library services, resources, and also the information in which they are having. So it can be in terms of resource, in terms of manpower, in terms of facilities, and in terms of activities and services. So somehow there is a kind of connection or interconnected systems in which the libraries or the organizations are sharing their resources. So the major components of sharing such kind of information is, you will be always having a computer as well as communication technologies. So it is not that you are physically providing something. So many of the communications which are part of communication system or networking system or information and communication technology system. So when you talk about a network, you will be having a group of organization or group of libraries. They are sharing their resources, making the use of telecommunication and communication and networking technologies. So through library networks, it can considerably enhances the efficiency as well as the services of the libraries to provide or to get maximum services, information and resources each other. So when we talk about networks, so these kind of networks can be vary based on scale and structure, geographical coverage, resource sharing, collaboration, activities and also services. So in terms of all these areas, the library networks can be differ from one to other. So there are some standard definitions for library networks. So when we talk about simply what you mean by a network, it is a group of individuals or organizations which are interconnected to form a system to accomplish some specific objective or specific goal. But when it comes to library networks, it is broadly described as a group of libraries are coming together with a certain agreement of understanding to help each other with a view to satisfy the information requirements of their users. So that is what standard definition given by Franklin David Javaraj and Frederick Robin Devados. According to Donald King, the definition of library network, it is a cooperative library organization that usually consisting of a formal arrangements whereby materials, information and services provided by variety of types of libraries and other organizations are made available to all members. That means library network is defined as it is a specialized library corporation and that for centralized development in the form of a cooperative operation or cooperative program and services and requiring the establishment of a central office and staff to accomplish network programs rather than merely making a coordination among them. So this is the standard definition given by American Library Association, Glossary of Library and Information Science. So in total, it is a kind of a cooperation among the libraries to share the resource in terms of manpower, resource in terms of expertise, resource in terms of information or even the services and activities which are happening or which are part of an agreement and happening through telecommunication or computer and information and communication technology. So what is the need for library network? So one of the major need of library network is information explosion. So as we know that information is exploding like anything because the frequency of resources which are adding to the libraries as well as which are published in an exponential way, it is very difficult for any libraries to keep all the resources which are available. So such kind of information explosion is a challenge for any of the libraries to provide maximum services to the users. So when you are part of library network, so this will always enable you to provide maximum services, though you don't own such kind of resources, but it can be availed from the other libraries as part of resource sharing. So library networking is one of the major requirement for any library and which makes that necessity because of information explosion. And the next one is price escalation of library documents. As we know that the price of the documents, say for example books as well as journals or whatever databases you are going to purchase or subscribe, the amount in which we need to pay every year is keep on increasing. So it is very difficult for you to maintain the same collection with the same funding from one year to the other year. That means the percentage of enhancement, the percentage of increase in the price of a particular material will be always high. So the escalation in the pricing system also one of the requirement for library networks. And the other one is increased cost of library services. As a library, staff provides many services including circulation, cataloging, classification and additional services. So for all these services, huge amount of money has to be invested in order to provide maximum services. So in terms of resources, expertise and also infrastructure among the member libraries, a huge investment is involved. That is also one of the reasons why we need to become a member of library networks. Once you are become a part of library networks, so you will be considerably saving the infrastructural, staff requirement, expertise requirement, etc. because always this is handled by a decentralized or a centralized form. And the next one is access to specialized expertise. So once you are become a part of library networks, you will be having a huge community of expertise so that you can share your views, you can get some advanced ideas, and whenever you are having problem or issues or challenges with the activities and services in the library, so the problems can be resolved or the issues can be solved, making such kind of interaction between the community members which are part of networking system. So you are always having a group of expertise in the networking system in the library networks. And the other reason is geographical accessibility. As we know that when you are in a physical library, you are bound to get only those collections which are available in that particular library. So there is a geographical boundary or there is a physical limitations to get access to the resources. But once you become a part of library network, normally it has considerable amount of electronic resources in terms of books as well as journals or even the databases also. So the accessibility of having such kind of a resources will be more, and apart from that, geographical barriers are eliminated in the case of library networking system. So this is also one of the requirements of library networks in the libraries. And apart from that, the other need is continuity in service, as we know that sustainability of services is very much important. So when something happens like natural disasters or calamity happens, so maybe the collection, entire collection which you have built for long years may be lost. So in such cases you don't have anything to share or you don't have anything to provide to the users. So in such cases, if there is no much security or safety mechanism has been introduced, in the case of library networks, that will be always helpful, for without losing any kind of material, you are always in the safe side to provide such kind of information to the users. So making such kind of resources in a continuous manner or having a sustainability of the resources which are available, library networks are always useful. And when you are become part of library networks, you are supporting or you are encouraging the library digital initiatives. Say for example, when you are creating a digital library or institutional repository, so that can be also part of library networking system, so that the other people also can be able to access that. So you are one side, you are providing the access to the resources, and the other side your resources will be getting recognized or it is getting a more visibility rather than only those users which are part of that particular library is able to get it that. So the coverage which is going beyond the physical limitations or physical boundary of a particular library once you are become a part of library network, and as well as the collections which are restricted for a particular library will be able to access by all the members which are part of library networks. In that way you are pooling the digital resources and the expertise, so you are supporting the digital initiatives of particular country. And also advancement of open access. So once you are become a library network member, as we know that if you are there in a physical library where you are not connected to the external world, it is very difficult for you to support open access, because open access is where you are getting a material free of cost, and as well as you are providing free access to the resources which are available with you. If you are not become a part of library network, even if you make a particular resource which are intend to make an open access resource, the people will not be able to access them. So being a part of library networks which also support or enable open access principles and initiatives. And the next one is community engagement and outreach activities. So library networks also supports outreaching activities as well as community engagement, because it can be connected to many of the organizations which are out of that particular geographical area. So libraries will be always connected to the expert as well as the organizations of other libraries, and also they will be having a sharing of expertise as well as experiences. So many of the community needs, we can always say that community participation is very much important. Say for example, when you talk about public library system, the community participation or engagement of community is very much significant. So in that way also library networks can help in such a way that you will be always helpful or you will be always supportive to bring such kind of a community participation through library networking systems. And now, dear learners, let us look into the aims and objectives of library networks. So what are the major objectives of library networks? One is access to information. As we have seen that any type of material which are available online or which are part of this networking system will be able to access by all the members of that particular library networking community. So there is no restriction. There will be an uninterrupted access to the resources which are available in all the members, all the member libraries. And the next aim is, or the objective is, resource sharing. As we have seen that if it is in a physical library, it is very much restricted that you can always share your resources to the other libraries. There is a barriers like geographical barriers, technological barriers, and even the community barriers. So in such a cases the resource sharing will be limited in case of libraries. But in the normal case, if you are part of a library networks, it always enable you to share your resources without considering the geographical boundaries, or geographical location doesn't matter in the case of library networking and resource share. So the other way, it can considerably reduce the duplication of resources or duplication of services or duplication of efforts and activities which you have been taking in the libraries to perform a particular activity. Say for example, union catalogs or shared catalogs, shared storage mediums. So these are all helpful for the libraries perform such kind of activities jointly or together, so that they can considerably reduce the manpower, money as well as time. The other objective is collaboration and networking. As the name indicates that too much collaboration and networking can be provided within the member libraries, so that even each and every kind of activities can be performed in a shared manner. And apart from that, both the libraries, all the member libraries will get a mutual benefit out of that. The other one is support from specialized collections, technological advancement, advocacy and outreach. So you will be always having some kind of an advantage to become a part of library network, where you will be able to get advices from the other libraries, getting the expertise support, and also the technological advancements. Say for example, if somebody is very much proficient in doing the automation process and installing of a particular software, they have developed and created a digital library system. So the same expertise can be hired, or maybe as part of library networking system, such kind of services can be made by a reduction in the service charge, or maybe you will be getting such kind of services free of cost, so that both the libraries will have some kind of a mutual benefit out of that. User-centered services is another objective of library networking system, where priority has been given to a user. If a particular user is asking a particular requirement, if that particular requirement is not being fulfilled by the library in which he or she hold or belongs to, then such cases the library can provide such kind of information from other libraries through the library networking procedures or process. Collaborative projects and initiative is another objective of library networking system, where library network can give a platform where users can collaborate, or researchers or users can collaborate each other for any kind of a project or initiatives. This can include programs like digital libraries, research projects, professional development programs, and also community outreach activities. The next one is technical support and expertise sharing. So as we have seen that if a particular library is having a particular skilled person, so that person's expertise can be shared. And sometimes, say for example, when you are planning to have a digital library, you are not technically sound, whereas the other library is having a staff having a sound skill in this particular area, so that technical service or the expertise can be shared through library networking. And also advocacy and collective actions, also part of library networking system. So dear learners, you can see that these are all the major objectives of any library networking system. And now let us see what are the functions of library network. There are major functions which can be categorized as resource sharing, one of the major functions. It can drastically reduce the duplication of materials, and of course it can highly improve the access to information, and definitely it will save some kind of a cost when you look at it in the long run, and people can have the professional developments and also collaboration among the libraries or between the libraries to share the experience, expertise, and also the activities and services. So these are the major functions can be broadly categorized in the case of library networking systems. And now let us look into the structure of networking. So once you plan that you will be part of a networking system, so what is the real structure of a networking or library network system? So as we know that there are many networking systems which are not alike, because each and every library networks are developed with a basic objectives, and they can be differ from one to other. So there are some set of goals or objectives, visions and missions in normally while developing a library networks, and the community participation and the number of members and the category of members, so all can differ from one to other library network. So the structure cannot be always identical, so that can be vary from organization to organization, and sometimes the structure also can be changed from time to time based on the expertise of members in which they are having the membership in that, and experiences and their collaboration and their requirements, future needs, etc. So according to these also, the networking or the library networks can be changed from this existing form to the future forms. Say for example, when you talk about such kind of a changes in the structure, you take an example of university library system within a state. So this sometimes can be a decentralized model. That means the decision will be taken by the parent organization or the university, where that has to be followed by the college libraries. So in such a way that centralization and decentralization can be part of the structure of networking systems. And sometimes when you look at the public library system, how the library networks, it cannot be decentralized one. Normally it will be having a higher authority or upper authority, where that will be in a hierarchical model, where from state central library, district level library, or even remote libraries, panchayat libraries, etc. So there will be a hierarchy will be followed. So the network can be in a hierarchical model also. In such a cases, we can say that there are different structured networking systems available in the country. So according to Alan Kent, there are major three categories of or structures of library networks, such as star network, hierarchical network, and distributed network. As the name indicates, it is self-explanatory, where in the case of star network or library networking system, it looks like a star where all the participating libraries are having equal responsibility as well as equal facilities. So that means all the resources holding by a particular library will be equally given to the other libraries also. And as we have seen the hierarchical network, it will be in a hierarchical model where there will be a top level and there will be a lower level. So there will be a hierarchy in that, and all the network will be controlled by a higher authority or an upper authority. In a distributed network, as we know that there will be many members, but the distribution of resources will be different from one to other. So that means somebody will have more resources and some members may have less resources, and based on their requirements the resources will be distributed. So these are all the major three library networks devised by Alan Kent. So dear learners, let me conclude this particular session of library networks. In total, library networks maximize the services and activities of a particular library, which also enhances the accessibility to the resources, and networking of libraries which offers opportunities to improve the responses of users' requirements as well as their demands, so that library will be able to provide maximum services as well as new services to the users. So it always enables improving the operations and activities of a particular library. It enhances the services of the libraries towards users, and as we know that it is cost effective. So through library networks, people will be able to share their resources, expertise, experiences as well as ideas and innovations that can be mutually benefited for all the members of that particular library networking community. So library network also encourage library management to apply system thinking, system analysis as well as system techniques to all library operations. So dear learners, with this I hope that you could have a clear idea about what you mean by a library networks, what are its definitions, and how do you plan for a library networks, and what are the different structures of library networks. And once you are become a part of library networks, what are the advantages and benefits and opportunities you have with that particular library networking system. Though it is not identical that all the library network systems works towards a same goal, each and every library network has its own objective, goals, vision and mission, but become a part of library networks will give a huge number of benefits as well as services and experience and expertise. Dear learners, remember that no library is an island. So no library can be self-sufficient in having the collection, services and the activities. So we always need to depend others or depend other libraries so that you can enhance your operational efficiencies and activities. Thank you.